Hey guys, my name is Matt Johnson with whoismatt.com, and we need to talk about the Sony A7S III. July is, as I've said in previous videos, the month of camera insanity, with new full-frame cameras from Canon, Sony, and potentially Nikon. And as a camera nerd, I'm loving it. The issue is that I may be driving my wife insane with how much I'm talking about cameras, and if my 1-year-old understood any words that I was saying, like bitrate or overheating, she may start crying. So, what can I do? I come to you. You'll listen to me ramble about new camera things, won't you? I hope so. Here we go. Canon just put all their cards out on the table with the R5 and the R6. And while that has dominated the news for the past couple days, I've noticed a healthy amount of comments and messages trickling into my inbox saying things like, I'm tempted to pre-order the R5 or the R6, but I want to see what Sony has in store with the A7S III. Or, Sony sure has their work cut out for them with the A7S III. Or one person who said, I didn't know that the Amish liked cameras, which I don't know how related that is. I think that's more directed at me and my face in general. But my point is, just like you, I want to see Sony go all in. I want to see them put all their cards on the table with the A7S III, and I want to see what they've got. This mythical camera that we've begged, pleaded, and honestly demanded from Sony is finally happening. And now that we know what Canon is offering, I think it's time for us to set our expectations for Sony. So today I want to talk to you about 4 things that I want to see from the A7S III. As someone that has filmed with the A7S II for 5 years now, I have a long list of things that I want upgraded, but I've narrowed it down to 4 big ones. I also have one thing that I don't want to see as well. First thing, let's talk about resolution. Canon has just dropped the R5 on us with 8K like a hot potato. The internet is burning up with speculation about this camera. We're almost at the melting point of news about what Canon has done. See what I did there? I'm all for future-proofing. 8K is great, but not a single filmmaker has asked for that. Heck, half the filmmakers I've talked to are still shooting 1080p, and they're editing on a MacBook Air that is looking at them nervously every single time that they even mention 4K. I don't think Sony needs to put 8K in the A7S III. I don't think they even need to put 6K. I don't want them chasing a spec sheet for the sake of numbers. I've said this before. Filmmakers want a camera that shoots 4K at up to 60 frames per second in full frame. If Sony gives us that, I'm happy. Anything else they want to add on is gravy. And I love gravy. They want to give us 4K 120 frames per second too? Awesome. RAW with an external recorder? Let's do that. As long as I can record 4K at 60 frames per second in 10-bit 422, I think that I, as well as a lot of filmmakers, are going to be very happy. Closely related to resolution and bitrate, let's talk storage, because that's what I want to see next from the A7S III. Look, I'm used to SD cards. 40 bucks gets me 128 gigs, and I can use 2 cards to get me through filming an entire wedding day. Of course, I know that if the A7S III is recording 4K 60 at higher bit rates, it's going to need faster memory cards. History has shown, though, that due to SD cards being the world's most common card format, they often are cheaper than other types of memory cards because they are produced at such a large scale. Currently, the prices for UHS-2 SD cards and CF Express cards used in the Canon R5 are pretty similar. But considering that SD cards are more common, I'm betting their prices are going to drop quicker than CF Express, which are used in significantly less devices. I'm really hoping that Sony will copy the Panasonic S1H with its dual SD card slots. The S1H has already proven these cards are fast enough for 4K 60 video and even 6K video, so I'm betting they'll be fine with the A7S III. I'm going to warn you now that you're going to notice in this video that I say that Sony should take a lot of things from the S1H. Really, if you think about it, if Panasonic had full-frame 4K 60 and fast and reliable autofocus, I don't think I would actually be as excited about the A7S III. The S1H would literally tick basically every single box that I want in a video camera. It's so close. So that leads to the next thing that I want from the A7S III. I wanted to copy the S1H's fully articulating screen. Anyone that has ever tried to film themselves with a camera has wanted a screen like this. Here I am on my A7S II filming this video with a small HD screen mounted above it so I can actually see myself. What's funny is that I have a Sony a6400 that I bought last year, and look, it has a flip-up screen. I can look at myself while I'm filming, but it feels kind of like version 1.0 of a flip-up screen. It's a little janky. You have to move the hot shoe over so you can use a mic with it. It's not ideal. If you asked me all the way up until May of this year, I would have told you I'm betting Sony is going to work the A7S III to put a flip-up screen on it like the A6400. It'll be better than nothing, I'll take it. But then, out of nowhere, end of May, Sony announces a new vlogging camera, the ZV-1. Why is this camera a big deal? Just like Panasonic, Canon, Nikon, Fuji, it looks like Sony finally gets it. The ZV-1 screen flips out to the side, and you can't tell me that after Sony used the same flip-up design in the RX100, A6400, A6600, etc., that they won't take this fully articulating design and use it in a future camera as well. A future camera like the A7S III. Next, we gotta talk picture profiles, because Sony is famous for giving you a zillion picture profile options, but it's not like Canon, where you can just turn the camera on and immediately get gorgeous skin tones and mediocre dynamic range. You have to work at it with Sony to make sure that you're getting good skin tones. You gotta finesse those colors a little bit. At least you needed to until Sony released the FX9 last year. Ever hear of s-cinetone? Imagine, if you will, a picture profile that has almost the same dynamic range as S-Log3, but colors that'll make you say, Canon? Or more like, Canon interested in you anymore because Sony finally got rid of their green tinted skin tones, am I right? I'm sorry, that's the only thing that I could think of. It's very hard to rhyme something with Canon. Look, do me a favor. Go to Philip Bloom's YouTube channel, watch his s-cinetone test shots from the FX9. I'll link to it below. He has footage you can download for free if you want to pixel peep. My point here, I want s-cinetone on the A7S III. Sony, make this the default picture profile for the Sony A7S III. Make filmmakers that turn on this camera immediately fall in love with the colors, please. To sum it up, I'm really hoping Sony can give us good quality 4K on a reasonable memory card with a fully articulating screen and good colors. There's other stuff, good autofocus, duh, but there's one other thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk about what I hope Sony does not give us with the A7S III. Let's have some context. Canon just announced the R5, and in their official documentation for this camera, they admit that it overheats after 20 minutes of recording in 8K and 25 minutes after recording in 4K 60. My friend Matt Harris from the Film Poets has a video where he breaks down an interview with an official Canon representative where they said this is not limited to just the R5. The Canon R6 will also overheat when shooting at 4K 60. This representative says the R6 will even overheat if you just leave the camera on in the menus for 40 minutes. If that's not insane enough, here's the real kicker. These recording times come from Canon's ideal setup. A room set to 73 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 Celsius. I live in Texas. Today, right here, right now, it is 105 degrees outside. I am seriously concerned that either of these cameras will work in all of the southern United States for more than a few minutes in the summer. Bringing it back to Sony now. What do I not want from the A7S III? I don't want overheating, especially in 25 minutes shooting 4K 60 in ideal conditions. Do I think Sony can do it? Let me put it this way. Sony is the world's largest manufacturer of image sensors for cameras. I think they are several years ahead of Canon in the area of sensor development. I think that if Sony had wanted to, they could have taken the A7R III from 2017 with its 42 megapixels and given us 8K recording and 4K 60, just like Canon has done with the R5. Know what I also think? In 2017, that camera would have overheated just as quickly as the R5. So Sony said, we're gonna wait until we can make this image sensor more efficient. I think most camera manufacturers these days can make a high resolution sensor that shoots at a high frame rate. Look at Red with their 8K Monstro sensor. Look at Arri Alexa with their large format sensor. Look at Canon with their C500 Mark II. It's one thing to make a high resolution, high frame rate camera sensor that can fit into a cinema camera body with proper cooling. It's another beast entirely to take that same sensor and put it into a compact, mirrorless camera and not have it overheat. We've waited a long time for the A7S III. Longer than me, and I'm sure you have probably wanted. But I'm thinking it's because Sony's sensors are finally efficient enough to not overheat in a small mirrorless body. I'll leave you with this. In a recent interview about the A7S III, Sony said, we hope it will meet and exceed the expectations and requests of our customers. Canon just made that really easy for them. All Sony has to do is make a camera that doesn't overheat in an air-conditioned room. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me ramble about the A7S III. I hope that you are as excited as I am about this camera coming out. I'm sure I will be making more videos about it in the future. It would be a huge help to me if you would consider liking this video and subscribing if you want to see those videos. Also, if you want to check out my Canon R5 and R6 overview videos, those are linked down in the video description as well. Last thing, if you happen to be a wedding filmmaker, regardless of whether you film Sony, Canon, Panasonic, even Nikon, I would love to help you book more couples and film more weddings. I've created a free guide that's going to show you how to do that. Completely free. You can download it at the link down in the video description. It's short, it's sweet, full of practical things that are going to help you. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.